Hello everybody, Tim here. This is RodLab video tutorial number 3 where we're going to talk about some advanced taper entry techniques. But before we do that, let's go back to that one taper I just created in number 2 video, and that was the 7613 taper from Russ Gooding, the LT, 7613 LT. And one thing I didn't do when I created that video is I didn't put any notes in there. And I really like to do that especially when I'm pulling something off a public server. And that way, if it becomes necessary, I can go back and read the details for the file. And maybe I left something out, or maybe I made a mistake when I created it. And that way I can find it really easily. So I've already put that in, no need to save this. We're going to close back up and we're going to start again. So I pulled a few tapers off the classic fly rod forum. First one we'll do here is we've got an 8-foot divine that Black Dog is having restored, and he was kind enough to pull the taper off us, and it doesn't actually say, but I believe, or at least I'm assuming, these measurements came from the taper with the varnish already removed. So let's come back. I'm going to put this whole post in as notes, and we're going to come back up here, and I'm going to grab the link to the post as well and make it much easier to find if I ever want to come back, and maybe there'll be some updates. So I'll put that in there, and this is going to be divine 8-foot from Black Dog on fly rod. All right, so let's come back to this post, and we're going to read through this a little bit and get some more information because we've got a taper here, but we don't have everything else. So first comment by taper maker, well, 1464 ferrule, likely a 6-weight, great point, and that kind of answers maybe what our first attempt to classify this rod would be. And the ferrules come back, we've actually got 2 of them, so it's a 3-piece rod, and that's about all we have right now. The rod hasn't been cast. So we're gonna maybe put these numbers in, and we'll come back and do some work with it in the bending tutorials later. So come back to here, it's an 8-foot rod. Actually, before I do that, I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna get the numbers again, just the numbers this time. I'm gonna copy that, and we'll paste those into the paste box. And you notice there's actually a dash between. That doesn't matter. RodLab will just ignore that. So I've got station information and dimension. And some other websites you go to may have stress as well. When you go to copy and paste everything, it'll grab stress. So if you had that in there as well, you could leave it there and select that radial button, and it would just ignore the stress. And you see there's also a radial button for guides if I have some guide spacing. We'll come back to that in the next one. So go ahead and do the read box. And it takes those numbers that I've got here and puts them into the taper data and station data. And first thing you'll notice maybe is that I've only got a 7'6" rod, which tells me the information I have here only goes up to 90 inches. So we're going to come back, and instead of 7'6", I'm going to manually enter 8'0", and I'm going to hit the read box again, which is going to go out and reread those numbers. And when I do that, I'm going to get a warning or an information that it added an extra point at the butt to compensate for the length difference. So when I click OK, you'll see this taper will change. And now I've got a full 8-foot taper. And we didn't really know, or we have no way of knowing what's underneath the handle and the reel seat, but we're going to go ahead and use these numbers for now. So I'm going to use 6 weight as a line weight. Again, for now, we can come back and change this. I'm going to guess his varnish density was higher than that. Again, probably 5,000s maybe for a dip rod. And that's varnish density in ounces per square inch. And we'll see that a little bit more later when I show you some of the output of the program when you create tapers. It'll give you the surface area, and you can come back and calculate your own varnish density based on however you're doing, if you're dipping rods or doing a wipe on finish. So we know there's 3 rod sections, and when I do this, it's going to come up and automatically pick 2 ferrules for me, a 17 and a 11/64 ferrule. And the numbers will be pulled out of the RodLab database. And we're going to go with Super Z. I don't have any information otherwise. And again, as far as I know, this is not hollow, so we don't have to worry about this. It's not an R-quad. We don't have to worry about that. And we've got 10 guides selected. That's probably fine. I don't have any better information, so I will just let the program auto-pick the guides, and it's done that for me. 10 millimeter stripper guide. And again, you'll notice we've got the masses here that we'll be using to calculate some of the bending profiles, although they don't have a huge effect, so not a huge deal. But you know, and at this point I've got, I think, everything we need to save the taper. So let's go ahead and save this off, and we will come back to this file a little later when we're doing some bending comparisons. So that one's good. I'm going to close this out, and now I'm going to pick a new taper that I've got here. This is a Kushner taper that Dennis, aka Trout Wings, was kind enough to post. So let's put this one in. This one's kind of nice because it actually has guide spacing information. So let's enter a new taper, and coming back here, I'm just going to grab the whole post again and put this in the comments. So I'll have where that was located. And one thing again that I also find useful is I'll just go ahead and grab the URL, and if I want to come back and see if anyone else has posted any updates, maybe someone has built the rod and has some more information about it, we'll put the URL right here in the notes too. So this is a Kushner, and it's an XLReam. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Let's see, I think that's what Dennis said. XLReam, there we go. And coming back, he said this was, it's easier to read it off the web page. So 76 3/4, so we're going to call it 77. So that's a 6'5" rod. And before I do that, I'm going to come in here, and again, I'm going to paste that taper in. Station, dimension are the two things we have here. The dash will be ignored. Read the box, and it says 5'8" because again, that's all we have. So again, 6'5". Read the box again. It'll go ahead, put that extra point in. I really don't know what's under there. I'm just going to go with this for now. It might be a little bigger, but we'll come back to that if we need to. And Dennis mentioned this was a 4-weight or cast a 4-weight well, and it was a 2-piece rod. So we're going to pick a Super Z ferrule at number 12, and let's come back here if there's any other information, and there is. We've got some guide spacing, so let's grab this guide spacing. And you'll notice it's actually got fractional guide spacing instead of decimal, so that's okay. RodLab will know how to deal with that. I'll paste that in and tell it that's my guide spacing, and when I do a read box, it'll go ahead and put those guides in here. Now we don't have any information about what size the guides are, so RodLab will just make picks based on the fact this is a 4-weight rod. And as far as I know, all of this information is accurate. We don't have any hollowing information, almost certainly solid based on what we have here. So I am going to go ahead and save this off. And there, that's it. The rod's been created, and that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.